Hello, everybody. This is the Chocolate News Podcast, and this week's podcast is sponsored by Interact for Health. I'm your co-host, John Alexander Reese. And if you didn't know, the Cincinnati Herald has been around since 1955 and is the leading African-American owned newspaper in the greater Cincinnati area and northern Kentucky area. And today we have with us our digital correspondent, Andria Carter. How's it going, Andrea?
Fine, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Just trying to beat the heat. That's all I can do.
Oh, it's hot out there today. It's hot.
Yeah, it is. So, Andrea, what are some of the chocolate news stories of the week?
Well, John, it's been an interesting, you know what? We keep going on this roller coaster of life. It's unreal. But I would just first off, it wounds me to say this, but Dr. Anthony Fauci has announced that he's going to retire at the end of the first term of Joe Biden's term, which I'm sorry to say wounds me to hear him leave, because he has been such he's been such a good resource of information, of uplifting, of hope. Even when the information has been bad about COVID during this pandemic, he's been very hopeful. He's been very helpful. I think America is better for him being at the NIAID and him serving as a director, and being a leading researcher in the world. He has just set the tone of what a leader in the health world should be about when having to deal with a health crisis, which we are still in the middle of.
Yes, we are.
Even though things are better, people are vaccinated, people are still getting COVID, whatever variation they're getting. I know a new wave is about to occur. I know more cases are going on in Hamilton County. And in fact, Hamilton County is yellow right now. And in fact, a number of counties in Ohio are yellow. Everyone has to take concern. I know when I'm going to the music festival this weekend, I'll be wearing a mask, being around all that many people. But at the same time, that's not going to stop me from having a good time. And I think if everyone does everything to make themselves safe and healthy, we'll continue to get through this. And I think Dr. Fauci is a leader to watch, to learn, and to listen from at all times until he retires. And hope to God that he works as a consultant even after he retires. So
yeah, definitely. But he's definitely earned his retirement, because I think he's in his early 80s. So, it's like, I wish him the best. And, I just
he does not look like he's in his 80s.
Yeah, I believe he is in his early 80s. Yeah, either 80 or 81 or something. Because I was looking at, because I was posting the story and I was just wondering, oh, how old is he? And said he's in his early 80s.
Unreal. He looks good for a man in his 80s.
Yeah. You can tell he definitely takes really good care of himself.
He talks the talk and he walks the walk. So you can see that he's doing very well. Next up, it's kind of disheartening to hear that we've had another mass shooting. It was in Indianapolis. Unfortunately, on Sunday in Greenwood, Indiana, a gentleman walked into a mall, into the food court at Greenwood Park Mall, and started shooting people. Luckily, not that many people were injured, and a gentleman who does conceal and carry ended up shooting the guy and stopping him from doing more damage, which, I'm glad the gentleman was there. But I think it's just sad that, again, another young man in his 20s, whatever was going on, chose to inflict harm on the public than seeking help for himself. And I think we have to stop and think for a minute what this means. Of so many young men are choosing to pick up a gun and shoot their way out of their situation or out of their issue, or thinking that they are believing in something so deeply that they're going to take some people out. And I'm thinking of the Top Market in Buffalo. Last year, we had the gentleman shooting the Asian residents out in California and in Atlanta because they're different. I think America has an acceptance problem, especially our young people who are so bombarded with information. They don't know how to filter that information in the correct way in terms of acceptance of people who are different from you, but are not causing you any harm. There's some misthinking in terms of their taking in that information. And I don't know what caused this young man to shoot the Indianapolis Mall on Sunday, but again, it's a sad situation. I mean, at one point, schools, churches, our grocery stores, our churches were safe places, and parades were safe places. Now, everything that we held value and dear are no longer safe as they used to be. And how do we deal with that?
It's just really sad that we have to live in this reality. I mean, it's like, is it going to get to the point where everyone has to have a gun? Is it going to be like the Wild Wild West?
I don't want it to be.
I don't want it to be either.
But I think at the same time, I think what we need to ask ourselves, I work with people doing crime prevention work using problem solving. And I think that as America as a whole needs to stop and take a look at the situation, do a little problem solving to get down to the core issue, whether you're using SARA, whether you're using CEPTEB, or using the 5 whys. We have to dig deep down and say why. Is our country as a whole suffering from a form of PTSD out of COVID? Is it from so many organizations not liking what they see, and young people are listening or gleaning onto this information? Because if you think about it, we're going through a gun crisis with our young people. A certain percentage of our young Black men are dying on the street from shooting, and then certain young white men are dying or causing deaths because they can't handle something and they're shooting their way out of it. And I guess my question is, what is happening to our young people that it's easier for them to handle a situation by picking up a gun than it is to argue or think their way out of it? It's just not a white issue or a Black issue. It's an American issue. And why aren't we addressing it correctly? But out of sadness, we have hope. That hope is everyone over the last 7, 8 days, we have been hearing about Pastor John Gray, who is a native Cincinnatian. He grew up here in Cincinnati and graduated from Withrow High School. He is the co-pastor of Relentless Church in Greenville, South Carolina. And also they have a second location in Georgia. And he was taken ill 7 days ago. His wife let the world know on Facebook, asked for his prayers. Prayer continued. He was moved from a hospital in Greenville to Atlanta, and he could not move. He could not do a lot of things, but through the 2 sets of doctors, he today put on Instagram that he was leaving the hospital. He put a picture of his bed, his hospital bed, and said, "The devil wanted me to die in this bed," or something, a variation of that. Mm-hmm. And at the end, he said, "I'm out." And he's now going home to Greenville. He has a lot of monitoring, a lot of rest that he has to do, but he also has a lot of health benchmarks that he must meet to get whole again. He's out of the woods on a critical scope, but he's not out of the woods unless he changes lifestyle, he changes his outlook on life, and he does some things to remain blood clot free and healthy. So I think we're going to see some conversion of him losing weight and some other things, outlook on life, because he has to take all his health issues seriously. But I'm very happy to say, I know the evangelist community was watching this story very carefully. He's very well received. I know one friend who's an evangelist, she said she was watching it very, very closely. And so today he has gone home. So yay for him.
I know that's great to hear, because I know he has a large following, and I hope his followers can, I hope he can lead by example by leading a healthier lifestyle and everything, and just proving that, if you just lead a healthy lifestyle, you can manage a lot of health issues, including diabetes and everything.
I think it's gonna be interesting. I might try and watch the Relentless broadcast on Sunday, just to see if he shows, to hear what he has to say.
Right.
I mean, I got to know John Gray when he would preach on Wednesdays at Lakewood Church,
Mm.
and they would showcase his sermons on the website, and he has some good insight
Okay.
into life and what is proper, and he has a different viewpoint on things. And I came to like him, and then I stopped listening to him for a while. But I might go back and hear what he has to say this time because of this life-threatening, life-changing aspect that maybe, we'll see how he reacts to this warning.
Yeah.
I'm taking it as a warning. You get
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, if you don't learn, but we'll see what he does.
Yeah.
Because, my mother, she suffered a stroke from blood clots.
Mm.
So I know how serious the situation can be and what it can cause.
Mhm.
So he's very, very lucky and very happy for him. Also, this has proved the power of prayer. Prayer does work. You just have to be hopeful for everything. So very happy about John Gray, our fellow Cincinnatian. I know his mother's happy.
Oh, yeah.
Because she still lives here in Cincinnati. And last but not least, I believe this happened today. The House, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a same-sex marriage bill to sort of protect marriage, same-sex and interracial marriages, out of concern that the Supreme Court might be trying to overturn other issues like Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And I think it was a unique way that the Democrats got this done. I mean, we still have to go through the Senate with this, but I think it was a good, as some people are saying, a good strategy for the Democrats to show where Republicans stand on this issue. Who openly rejects gay marriage and who doesn't. And the vote was 267 to 157. And altogether, 49 Republicans voted with the Dems to pass this. So I think that gives you an idea of where certain Republicans stand on the issue of marriage and what they think marriage should be, especially when it deals with interracial and it deals with same sex. I think interracial marriage fought long and hard to get that passed and accepted. And then gay marriage, that's new within the last, less than 10 years?
Yeah, less than 10 years. Yeah.
Less than 10 years, that decision was overturned by a less conservative court than what the present one we have. And I think that, as one Republican put it in an article, she said, what was it that she said that I think is, I found it quite amusing. It was, Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina. She voted for the bill, and she said if gay couples want to be happy or miserable or miserably married as straight couples are, more power to them.
Yeah.
I find that quite funny.
Yeah,
so, misery loves company. Not saying that marriage is miserable. It's something that I still aspire to if I ever meet the one. Have not met him yet, but if I ever do, I have wonderful examples of partnerships in marriage. I think that I would like to have that as well if I ever meet the guy. So you're never too late.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's too many people want to put their stamp on other people because they don't think it's right, when you just need to live your life and accept who people are and what they do.
Exactly. If you don't like it, don't do it.
Right. And I'm just saying it's kind of sad that we have to protect what has been a given for so long, like Roe v. Wade, like marriage.
Yeah.
We have to now protect what we take for granted right now, which is kind of sad. But I think also it's the state of mind of what certain people think America should be like in their minds, in their viewpoint, even though it doesn't evolve that way.
Right.
And it's kind of sad. But that is our chocolate news for today.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrea. And as you folks know, this is the 80th episode, and unfortunately, our guest did not pan out because of what were you saying, Andrea? Because of
unfortunately, the guests that we had invited on our show today, they are activists. They are, they're ministers, and they're, activists, advocates, and spiritual leaders. And, when you're in that role, sometimes you get pulled in different directions, whether it's because it's a family emergency or work, or you're actually carrying on to be a leader in a situation. And that is what happened to us when we advertised who our guests were going to be for our 80th episode. And unfortunately, no one could make it.
Yeah.
At the last minute. I mean, actually, everyone today called and said they could not make it, but before they were saying yes. So I would just say that we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to start the conversation here.
Yeah, get the ball rolling.
We're going to get the ball rolling, but everyone who's invited tonight, we're going to invite them back on another night so you can hear their voices about what we're going to talk about. And do you want me to kick it off, John? Or
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we were kicking around in everything that has been going on in the world, and especially within the Black community. Where are we in our culture? And we were taking a look at everything that has occurred since President Barack Obama left office. And someone compared it to the same state of what the Civil War was, what America was like after the Civil War, where we were in a Reconstruction and then a redemption period. So the conversation began, are we Reconstruction or are we in redemption? And just to give everyone an idea of what we're talking about, after the Civil War, we were in a period of Reconstruction where we were rebuilding the South. Black people were getting elected to state offices and local offices. They were holding various positions and things like that. And then very slowly, white people were unsettled and they began redemption. They wanted things covered up. They wanted to implement laws. They couldn't accept a biracial democracy. They couldn't accept that the people that used to own are now their equal. And so they wanted redemption in terms of they wanted things back the way it was in a roundabout way. And that's how we got Jim Crow laws. So today, in the contemporary version of that, we were talking about, are we in a Reconstruction? Are we on a redemption period? And of leaning more, a few people are saying we're leaning more toward redemption than we are Reconstruction. And I think the best way to sort of view this thinking is Henry Louis Gates Jr. wrote a book that came out in 2019 called The Stony the Road, Reconstruction, White Supremacy, and the Rise of Jim Crow. And it was a book that was accompanied to a two-part series that appeared on PBS called Reconstruction, America After the Civil War. But what came out of that were several questions that he was asking, I think, and this is how we can start off our conversation. The questions were, think of the fundamental questions in the study of the Reconstruction forces for us to consider: who is entitled to citizenship? Who should have the right to vote? What is the government's responsibility in dealing with terrorism? And what is the relationship between political and economic democracy? And I think those five questions can help shape our conversation.
That is definitely something to think about.
I know I mentioned it to someone and they were like, whoa, that's so heavy. And yes, it is. It's a heavy conversation, but it also goes to how much our young people understand our past, how much young people understand our present, and how much what is happening today is affecting our future. And I think that we are facing a sense of citizenship because our ability to vote is being challenged by the Republican Party and on a local, state, and national level. Who should have the right to vote? Well, Donald Trump put that into question when he didn't like the results and he lost his reelection bid to Joe Biden. And the Black community put Joe Biden in office. Yeah. And he kept saying that the vote was, it was illegal, right, or that it was stolen, because he kept saying that the votes weren't there and that we put illegal votes in and all the other crazy stuff that's coming out through the January 6th hearing. And basically is that the fact that he could not accept the fact that the Black community did not vote for him, but voted for Joe Biden. And the power of our vote was significant, that we put a person in over what certain people didn't like in.
And also, I just have to say, as far as I know all the far right people are saying that oh, Joe Biden couldn't have gotten as many votes, and people just saying, oh, it was just a bunch of dead people voting, and people saying that Democrats, you know, they vote twice and all that stuff. And all of those examples, that it's basically happened to people who vote conservative and Republican, which I find funny. You know, I just find that funny when people say that dead people are voting, it's usually on the right side, or if people are voting twice, it's usually on the right. So I just find that kind of ironic. That's all I want to say about that.
Well, I think that where we are headed right now, I think we need to take a stop and look at, what do we want in our future? What do we expect from our leaders? Because we don't have a Martin Luther King. We don't have a William B. Du Bois, or we don't have not Farrakhan, but even though Farrakhan's a leader, who am I thinking of before Farrakhan? Malcolm. We don't have Malcolm. We don't have Martin. Some of our older civil rights leaders are aging.
Yeah.
They can't be as active. We have young people springing up and being active, hodgepodge here and there. But at the same time, there's that connection that's missing.
I think the biggest problem is because most of America is moderate, right? It's like, because it seems like it's just two sides. It's just like, it's right versus left, conservative versus liberal. And the viewpoint at least what I've been feeling, is that you either have to be like far on the right, far on the left. And I think that's a very black and white way to view it. It's like, some people are going to agree with some more conservative stance, and some people are going to agree with, some more liberal stance. It's like a good chunk of people are moderate. And I think some people just forget about that. But then we also go into the question like, well, maybe there should be like a third party, but it's like, we do have third parties, but nobody votes in the third party. So it's just, I don't know, it's just a lot to think about, really. And as far as like Black leaders go, it's just like, we have a lot of like older, Black people tend to be more conservative, but also do still have like, more liberal, values. But a lot of like Black people, younger Black people, they're more liberal and stuff, and not as conservative. So it's just, I don't know, it's really a lot to unpack, at least for me.
Well, it is. I mean, I think what we have to do is, I think the State of Black America, put out by the Urban League, framed it best just in terms of, what is the Black mindset? What are we? Where are we? And, I know we're tired. We're emotionally torn. We're worn down. We've always faced disparities. But now racism is more blatant than ever before. And if you take a look at the TikTok videos left and right, you see some outrageous stuff. Whether it's what is it called, Karens, or the I forgot what the male word for Karen is.
I'm gonna say it's Kevin.
The Karens or the Kevins, the what's been happening with police officers around the country. Though I do have to say that our police officers here, even though they have their issues, they're not as extreme as what's been happening around the country.
Yeah.
And I have to commend the Cincinnati Police Department for being open and more community oriented, that we're not seeing as much dumb stuff as we could be.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that the collaborative agreement was part of that.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we are seeing what we're seeing today as a lot better than what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, you have to stop and think about, there are more Blacks owning their own business because they're tired of the dumb stuff in the corporate world.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, as far as, yeah, blacks need to start owning more businesses. We really need to start owning more land. That's where it is. Land. We need more land, real estate. That's where the power is. It's like, but I don't know how far Black community has gone for that, but it's like we need land, real estate, that sort of thing. And like I said, owning businesses, it's just like we need to like just encourage our brothers and sisters to, be empower themselves and just like, it's like I don't want to say divide ourselves, but from the general population, but I'm just saying we need more. I'm trying to think of the right words.
We need more investment in ourselves.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
we need to go back to, actually we need our own Black Wall Street.
Really do. We need to,
and I think where
I know we tried it once, ended horribly because some horrible white people, but it's like we just,
and that was around the country too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one where now the stories are coming out of how there are successful Black towns around the country, and white people got jealous because we're thriving and they aren't, and they went in and destroyed everything.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, and they got away with it.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be accountability. There needs to be accountability on a societal level. When wrong is wrong, smack the hand, make them pay their, be disciplined. Right. And then at the same time, within our own community, smack the hand, make them pay, do their due diligence, be disciplined. Then at the end of the day, take whatever skill you use to sell something and do it for a positive instead of a negative. And we'll win. We'll come out winning instead of losing. But I think at the same time, America as a whole is suffering from an ailment that we can't put a picture on. But that ailment is causing our young people to become mass shooters, to become or urban shooters, or they're so weak-minded that they're committing suicide because they can't handle things.
Yeah.
I think that Black people have been so gone through the emotional wear and tear of living in two realities in this country, that with certain things that occur, we saw what was happening with Donald Trump long before other people do.
Oh yeah.
I think the fact that we put Joe Biden in office because we were voting for our interests.
Yeah.
We're not voting because he was best. We're voting on who's going to work on our behalf.
Yeah.
For the best. And even though we did that, we're still fighting for our behalf because we can't even get a Voters' Rights Act passed that needs to be passed, even though everyone will benefit from what is passed for us.
Right.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
And I think some thinking needs to change in America. Some viewpoints need to change in America. And it's kind of sad when, everyone puts it down to some simple this or that.
Yeah.
But we're in an era of where, I want all young people to succeed. Yeah. I want all young people to be strong, to strive, and put the best foot forward. And those who might appear weak, bring them along and say, hey, what's going on? What's up? But unfortunately, it's not that way. Instead we have people with fire torches walk through college campuses.
Yeah, and then people storming the Capitol, the federal building, and just like, and then they're surprised that they're getting arrested for. I think the rules don't apply to them just because of the, just because their skin is, a tad bit lighter, all that stuff. Right,
and I think that the bigger issue is, even though Moreland came out today and said no one is above the law, oh, that's fine, no one's above the law, but where's the indictment?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we know what he did.
Yeah.
Why is he not in handcuffs?
Yeah.
Why is he not being the assets frozen? people who he's dealing with. I mean, everyone around him is getting, either in contempt of court, they're being charged, or they've been convicted, or they've gone to jail and they're now out and writing the best-selling book.
Right.
I mean, everyone else that he has touched is getting touched. And I think everyone who was responsible for that day needs a hand slap of some sort. I think for America as a whole needs to heal. And even when they don't like the truth, accept it. I mean, what can I say?
It's a really complicated issue, and we could probably sit here for hours just discussing that, because it really is. It's not an issue that's black and white. It's gray. Just like with most things in life, it's a very gray issue.
It's a gray issue, and it's a deep issue, depending on which level you want to take it on. But I think those questions that I stated in the beginning, I think that is where we are right now, because you have a political party that's so busy power grabbing that no one has come out and said enough. Right. Stop.
Yeah.
Yes, I belong to your party, but I don't have enough people standing up for the Constitution. I see the Democrats doing it. I see the people in the January 6th hearing doing it. I hear certain people in America stand up for the Constitution and believe in the power of America. But there's a right-wing activism going on that wants to tear down what we have stood for almost 300 years now?
Yeah, 300 years. Yeah.
For almost 300 years, what we stood for. And we see firsthand examples of dictatorship, examples of authoritarianism, an example of what all these other countries have gone through. And when someone doesn't like something, right now we got the example of Russia bombing Ukraine. Yeah. Because Russia doesn't want them to become part of NATO, and they're not gonna give in to Russia. So Russia's like, oh, okay, and start bombing the hell out of the country. When does this madman get stopped? Even though no one wants to start World War III, when does he get stopped? When does bad behavior get addressed and stopped by the world? And we say, enough. You made your point. You don't like it. Tough. Grow up. And when is America going to rip that Band-Aid off and say, I don't like you? Okay, but how are we going to fix America? You don't have to like me. You don't even have to live next door to me. But we all have to operate within the society. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, because like I said before, I love America. America is a great country. I'm glad I live in America. But at the same time, America has many faults, just like with every other country. And I think people don't want to acknowledge those faults, or just ignore them and just say, oh, we're still the greatest country ever. But America, while it's great, still has many faults, and it's rooted in systemic racism. But some people don't even want to talk about it. They don't even want to talk about it. They just want to ignore it. They say, oh, racism doesn't exist, or some ignorant statement like that. Even though
it's like the people who are, remember the pictures that we see from the civil rights movement, where they're yelling at the young woman.
Yeah, they're yelling at the kids going to school. It's like, those people are still alive.
Right. And their grandchildren are seeing what they did, and they're like, you did that?
Yeah.
And they don't want to expose them to that, so that they did have bad behavior because they disliked someone who didn't look like them, trying to stop them from having an education.
Exactly. History, it's like, I know all these people are trying to get rid of critical race theory and don't want history or something ridiculous. I can't remember where it was, but where was it? I think in some state or whatever, some lawmaker, some congressman or whatever was trying to say they need to teach both sides. Like, I think it was both sides of the Holocaust. I said, there aren't both sides to the Holocaust. There
is no both. I mean, the Holocaust, I've learned a lot about the Holocaust when I was in elementary school. And I think the fact that America had their own concentration camp version when they
Yeah,
put Chinese Americans in a concentration camp,
yeah,
so
it
to
was the
speak.
Japanese Americans, and
Yes, the Japanese Americans, and I
yeah,
mean, they were put in encampments for a while, and I was like, we did it too.
yeah,
Now maybe we didn't kill them, but we did it
yeah.
too.
It was pretty horrible, and I'm just like, and I just hate how people want to whitewash history or just pretend that history was all sunshine and rainbows and all that stuff. I said history is very dark. History is bloody. History is messy. It's like I just like don't ignore your history. History is fascinating, but at the same time, don't pretend history was good and safe and revolutionary and stuff. It's like there's a lot of more dark areas, more gray areas in history. It wasn't black and white. It's just like history was gray, history was dark, history was dirty. It's slavery, Holocaust, concentration camps, genocide. It's like it all happened. But the reason we study history, reason we learn history is to not repeat the mistakes that our ancestors repeated in the past. And you can't whitewash history. You can't pretend that you can't edit this part out of history and say, oh, well, we need to learn both sides. It's like some sides you just have to embrace everything about history. And like I said, so you don't repeat it again. And that's why I find history so fascinating. And the fact that they're trying to wipe out history is just really rather disturbing.
It's disturbing. I mean, but if you think about it, Black history has been separated from American history for a long time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, if it wasn't for John Hope Franklin and his colleagues to go back and find and trace and record, we would not have the examples of Black history that we do. We wouldn't know who invented what because someone else took it over. I mean, think about Uncle Nearest.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Ernest Green, even though he was a slave, he taught Jack Daniels how to distill whiskey. And the process that he uses is now a standard in Tennessee for Tennessee whiskey. And that's a state law now that they can only use that way to process whiskey to be considered Tennessee whiskey.
And it's sad. I didn't even know that until like a couple months ago, maybe.
Yeah. And the fact that, a woman who was inspired to go to the Green family and say, how do you want to honor your relative who did this wonderful thing? Even though it was, whitewashed for years. I shouldn't say whitewashed, even though it was erased from history for years until a New York Times article looking at the history of Jack Daniels said, well, how did he learn how to do it? And he went to a doctor who owned slaves and he was distilling whiskey and the guy taught him. And then later hired him after the Civil War, hired that guy to work with him. He wouldn't even distill whiskey without him or his sons in the room. What does that tell you? And they're not, and what the wealth of Jack Daniels is today, they did not benefit from it, or maybe they had a small little portion of it, but not anything to talk home about. That now the family is part of the building of Uncle Nearest. And come to find out, Uncle Nearest is winning awards left and right. They've won over 198 awards of bourbon. And I think, and I think that's a testament not only to his legacy, as a testament to his family, and the fact that his great-great-granddaughter is the master distiller for Uncle Nearest. And she's winning awards.
Yeah.
That type of success should have happened when he was teaching Jack Daniels how to distill whiskey, but it's happening now.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone needs to take a step back and take a look. And I know a lot of young people are tired of hearing about Martin and Malcolm and everyone had with slavery and the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And who was first.
I will admit that Black trauma films do get old after a while.
They do.
But at the same time, it's like with Jewish people, it's like never forget.
Right.
Never forget the Holocaust. And I'm not going to I will never forget. I'm not going to forget about slavery, I'm not going to forget about Jim Crow. I'm going to remember all the things my ancestors did. And I will never forget that. and I'll pass
I
it
think we've
on
been,
to future generations.
yeah, I think we've been lucky with who am I thinking of? He did She's Gotta Have It.
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee. I think it wasn't for the fact that Spike Lee, we would not have a film about Malcolm X. We would not have a film about a number of people.
Yeah.
We would not, Jordan Peele, who is coming out with his third movie, Nope, which I don't know if I'm going to see or not because
I ain't going to see it because it looks really good.
He scares the bejesus out of me. He has a warped mind, but I mean, he's talented.
Yes. I'm just glad they're letting him do the movies that he wants to do.
Yeah, I think.
But that's another discussion for another day.
Yes, it is. But I'm just saying, the likes of him, we would not have them taking a look at various aspects of America and producing films about it that we can visually see and understand what's going on. We would not, if America had not evolved and allowed them to do what they do best.
Right.
And I think that, whether you're a biker, country music star, because I do like country music a little bit, I think we all have a place in this world. Yeah. And we don't have to accept everybody, but we just have to be accepting that everyone has a place in this world. We don't have to like them. Yeah. But we have to accept them and respect them. Yeah. Because they have a place. And I think that's what's missing. When we get young people's filters are changed, but I know we're going to continue this conversation. Oh yeah, definitely. So actually let's wrap it up because we've been going on for quite a while. Oh, we sure have. Okay. Yeah. So we will have let's just say that we've just given you some food for thought, and this conversation is going to continue. We do have a part 2 and a part 3 of this conversation. So just look for it in August for part 2. And I thank you for listening to us. And John. Yeah. Well, thank you, Andrea, for coming on and discussing the Good Chocolate News and also initiating part 1 of Reconstruction and Redemption. Oh, it's fun. You know me, once I get on a good topic, I just go. So yeah. And folks, make sure to, if you want to find out more information about today's topics and past podcast episodes, you can go to www.thecincinnatiherald.com, the SESH newsletter, or on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I also want to give a shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, Interact for Health. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. Our podcast is on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Amazon, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. I'm John Alexander Reese, and have a good day.